Namaskar, welcome to Indoz Television. I'm Reena Agustine and you're watching Life's Legal Journey with Cornerstone Law Offices. I have got Pravinita Singh Pillai. Hello, Pravinita.
Hi, Reena. Thank you, and welcome to our viewers.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. And we have to continue our journey sharing the story of Gary and Maya.
Yes, our fictitious characters so that we can tell the story.
So last time we spoke about when a person gets married and what are the we just touched upon what exactly they have to do, like the prenuptial. If we talk about the after marriage, things like buying a house, buying a car. Let's start with buying a car. So what are the legal things that they have to do?
Sure. So we're talking about Gary and Maya, a young couple. Perhaps they've now gotten married and they're looking at buying a car together, for instance. So what things should they be considering? First of all, we've touched on the prenups, as you've mentioned. What was the arrangement that they had in place in relation to how they're going to invest in any future assets that they buy together? So using the example of a car, now have they got savings together? Did they include their income together into that savings, 50-50, or in what proportion? Are they going to borrow money from the bank to buy the car on finance? What sorts of contracts are they going to be looking at? How are they going to pitch into that? Whose name is the vehicle going to be held in? One person or the other? So these are simple little things that they need to sort of start thinking about and discussing before they actually go and start looking for the car. Then you're looking at the where they're going to borrow money from. Are they going to look at finance brokers who deal with specifically car loans, or are they going to go to the bank straight up to get a loan?
Wow. So how can Cornerstone Law Offices help with that procedure?
Yes, so most times when you go to a bank or a finance lender, whether it's a car loan or etc., there'll be legal documents, contracts for you to sign. So we can review them for you. A lot of times you're in the hurry, you're there on the weekend at a car yard, with the dealers, and they're trying to push a sale through. They're doing their job, I guess. But you can ask for time out to say, I want to get my lawyer to review my contract so I understand what I'm signing before I sign this document. Most contracts will have what's called a cooling off period. So even if you have signed it on the day, you still have a period of time, and it'll be different for different contracts, where you can still get out of the contract without any significant penalties. Some of them will have penalties. So our advice always is read the fine print carefully, know what you're signing into, rather than what you've just told me. As a salesperson, you may have told me A, B, C, D things, but if the contract doesn't reflect exactly what you've told me, once you've signed the contract, you're bound by the contract rather than what was verbally conveyed to me.
That's correct.
So it's always better to read the fine print first and understand what you are signing into.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter if they're buying from a dealer, doesn't matter if they're buying from a private car owner.
Yes.
They can prepare their document and we can help them prepare.
We can help draft them, or we can help them review it and give them advice on it. You brought in a good point there. What if it's a private sale?
That's right.
I did have an inquiry this week from somebody at the situation is they bought a vehicle from somebody, a private sale, but the seller did not disclose that the vehicle was what we call encumbered, which means that there's a debt attached to that vehicle. Now, this buyer obviously didn't do their due diligence and look into all of this, didn't ask for a clear title of registration, etc. So there's a debt associated with this vehicle. Now, whoever that money is owed to, I don't know yet, I haven't met the client yet, whether it's a finance company, a bank, or another third party, well, they'll want their money first. Absolutely. If they haven't been repaid, guess what? They have a claim on that vehicle.
Wow. So how does Cornerstone come into?
Yeah, so this person's come to, so I'll need to see what documents they've signed, if anything, what disclosure was made by the seller. Did the seller just do a dodgy deal and get rid of a vehicle and has taken off with my client's money now, or my potential client's money now? And how does that fit into what's owed to to the person who had a security over that vehicle. Money is owed on it.
So we, like CLO can still help.
Yes. So we can give preliminary advice. We can look at any necessary documents that are in place. And this reinforces the importance of having documents in place.
Yeah.
No point going to a lawyer and saying, help me, when it's all about he says, she says.
Yeah.
There's very little we can do. We can fall back on what we call common law, but it's better or gives us more room to move and argue about things when things are documented. But again, if it's a case where we say we can't help you, it's basically a huge lesson in life for you.
Yeah.
That you learn from your mistake, basically, then we will be upfront and we'll tell you that. But yeah, you try and negotiate something and you try and get some resolution for everybody involved.
That's amazing. And people do that? I'm surprised.
Yes, really, you may be an honest person, Reena, and I would like to think I'm an honest person, obviously. But, we like to think people are like they're out in the world. But no, you have people who try and take advantage of other people, unfortunately. And I don't know the circumstances in this example I'm using of this case. And maybe it's someone that they knew that they bought from.
Wow.
It's could be people that are close to you that you get ripped off by.
So how can we avoid that?
Well, you can't. You just have to be. Well, how do you avoid it? Good question. You just have to be sensible about it. I guess be less trusting and more about looking for the evidence to say, okay, I'm buying this car from you. I have to do all the appropriate searches. So there's avenues of finding information about, is this car, does it have a loan on it? Does it have a debt on it?
Yeah.
So does a third party have an interest in this vehicle before you do? It's just, for instance, same applies to a house. If there's a mortgage on the house, the bank has the first right over that house.
Yeah.
So there's ways of doing searches. So, we can find out from road transport and all these searches to see if there's any debt on the vehicle.
All right.
Or any other claim.
So if a person is buying from a private owner and the buyer has prepared a document just saying that I'm this, and the owner doesn't have any debt, and also the money is into cash and it's on the paper, will that paper be valid?
Well, yes. So basically, when you're buying a vehicle, the seller would be drafting some form of contract, right? To say, okay, even if it's on a bit of paper to say, I, Reena Augustine, am the owner of this vehicle. I acknowledge that I don't have any debt on it, and I'm going to sell it to you for this amount of money. Excuse me, that's fine. But as the buyer, you can't just rely on what the seller is telling you.
Yeah.
It's your job to go and do your own homework and do the searches on this registration to see if there's any money owing on it or any other claim on it. So you can't just go on what the seller is telling you. It's your obligation, because the seller will say, well, I didn't know I had to tell you, then what?
That's correct.
You do your own homework. You cover your own tail.
Wow.
It's your money.
So in a gist, I can say that if a person is buying a car, doesn't matter from a car dealer or a private car owner, they just have to look into the documents, do their own research.
Correct.
And see whether the documents are real.
Yes.
And also do the research by seeing that whether the car actually is in debt or not.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
So do your homework is the short answer.
That's amazing. Thank you for that, Prav. The most important question is, now, after getting married, we all are excited to buy a house.
Yes.
Right? That's a couple's dream, that we need to have our own home.
Yeah.
But comes the debt with that. Now, if the boy is earning less and the girl is earning more, so how can that be weighed and how does it work?
Yes, okay, good question. So same thing, it's basically between the couple, how they're saving their money. They can choose to either hold that property in what we call joint names, so we call it joint tenants. The definition of that is, if you and I are buying a house together and we're buying as joint tenants, that means we have 50-50 equal share in the property, okay? Regardless of how much money you've put in and how much money I have put in. That's a decision we've reached.
Okay.
That regardless of you paying 80% of the money into it and I'm paying 20%, we're going to hold it as joint tenants so we have equal share in it. And that may be our understanding for whatever reason, okay? And most couples will hold properties as joint tenants. What happens then is, when one dies, that person's interest in that property automatically goes to the other person if they hold as joint tenants. The different way to hold it is as tenants in common. So that one is defined, for instance, remember I said you put in 80% of the money in it, then you hold it 80% interest, I hold 20% interest as tenants in common. Now, during the lifetime, you can give in your will your 80% share of that property to anyone you like. And I can do the same about my 20%.
Got it.
Okay, so most couples, like I said, will hold assets as joint tenants so that when one dies, it automatically goes to the other person. But there will be circumstances, and what we see in practice mostly is for the purposes of the first homeowner's grant that's available. If I'm buying a property with my husband, he's already had a property held in Australia or anywhere in the world before, then he can't get the first homeowner's grant in Queensland. Therefore, but I didn't ever own a property anywhere in the world. I qualify for that first homeowner's grant. For that purpose, I would want to hold 99% of that property and he could get 1% so I can get the grant. So these are reasons why. So you need to sit down and talk to your lawyer, your financial planners to structure it in terms of what percentage someone's going to hold the title in, equal or higher or less, regardless of how much money each is putting in.
Wow.
Okay, so there's all these things to think about.
Yes, and I heard you saying when the partner dies, what happens when they separate?
Yeah, good question. So that's very good because when parties separate, the way you've put in your money is a relevant factor to contribution, but the way you hold the asset is irrelevant. So even if the house is in my husband's name alone, if and when we separate, or if we separate, knock on wood, if we separate, that asset will still go in what we call the asset pool available to divide between the two of us. So I still get a claim on a property that's only in his name. So for separation purposes, it doesn't matter. It still goes in.
But if prenuptial is in place?
Yes, very good. So if the prenuptial agreement is in place, then that, depending on what that contract says, would happen in the event of our separation. So, for example, if our prenup agreement, the proper terminology is binding financial agreement, if that were in place and it said that any property that we bought jointly together, if we separate, will be divided in the percentage of the money we each contributed, then it'll go to that person according to that percentage. If it said that if one of us put in 100% in it and therefore the other one gets nothing, well then that's how it will be.
That will work.
It
So
will,
whatever has
exactly.
happened in the prenuptial, that will be
Yes.
still relevant.
Correct, because that's your contract with each other
All right.
before going into the relationship.
Okay. So now we have touched upon Maya and Gary
Yes.
buying a car,
Yep.
and now they're buying a house.
Yes.
So now, when they separate, when they separate, we touched upon that if the prenuptial is in place, it will be relevant once they separate, and everything will be according to what it was
What
said.
they contract
said,
exactly. Yes.
right? So now the separation happened,
Yes.
and last time we spoke about the inheritance,
Mhm.
right? So Gary gets a lot of inheritance. The separation is in process.
Yes.
What's the story there?
Good. Okay. So inheritance is always a bugbear. The timing of the inheritance is crucial in terms of when parties separate. So if inheritance is received during the relationship, okay, and the money is spent, so Gary and Maya are happily married, and Gary inherits, 50,000 from his grandparents dying, and that money is received during the relationship, and they've put it towards their mortgage, wise decision, or gone on a holiday, whatever. That's fine. That's money into the relationship already. If Gary receives that inheritance towards the very tail end of their relationship, and by that I mean, I don't know, the last 6 months or last year of it or something like that, it could still potentially be added into the asset pool, so Maya still gets a little bit of claim on it, but it's still seen as a huge contribution from Gary's part. So she doesn't get much out of it.
Yeah.
If Gary gets his inheritance after separation, but before the property settlement has been sorted out, then again, Gary can claim that it's his post-separation contribution, it should be quarantined, she doesn't get a cut of it.
Yeah.
If they've finished their property settlement and they've gone their merry way, then he receives the inheritance while she's got no claim.
All right. So if the prenuptial document clearly states that whatever is Gary's will stay with Gary, whatever is Maya's stays with Maya,
Yep.
how does that work?
Yep, so if that's included to say that the inheritance is well,
Yeah.
so your prenuptial has to be designed and drafted very carefully to cover all contingencies, or as many as possible. And if that's what it says, then yes, Maya can't make a claim. So I think in the last episode or one previous one, we've talked about one of my real estate clients who did that, who did make a prenuptial agreement with his new partner. And the only thing he wanted to safeguard was his real estate business and any inheritance that each of them received from their sides of the family. And that's what the prenuptial agreement or the cohabitation agreement looked at, was to exclude any claim from his current partner against those assets, and anything else that they accumulated together was available for claim, basically. And yes, I think I did mention within 3 or 4 months of signing, that relationship has unfortunately ended.
Yes.
So they can fall back on that agreement to say, yep, we're done, we go our merry way, and we're not running off to court to fight anymore.
Wow. So in short, please have your prenuptial in place. Go and speak to a lawyer and get everything sorted before you get into a relationship or get married.
Well, it's a sensible thing to do. Like I said, in society now we have, two individuals who are, I guess they're both needing to protect their futures, their finances. Our advice is, yes, every relationship you should be looking at that to say we will have contracts in place. And it's not about whether it's money, it's not about love anymore if you're going to sign contracts.
Yeah.
But let's be realistic, life's uncertain and you've got to be sensible about it. Marriage is a partnership. Yes, there's love there. To me, if you say, I'm not here for your money, I'm here for love, well, then you shouldn't have any issues signing things to say that your money will be protected, but so will be mine. And if you're the weaker party in the relationship financially, then it should be seen as a positive thing that you're not going to be left on the street with nothing.
That's right.
So it's got to be seen in that light of the realities of the life and community we live in these days, to protect everybody. It's there to protect everybody if it's done the right way. I've had an inquiry this week where they're off to their homeland to get married in 2 weeks' time or something like that, and they want to talk about making a prenup, and I said, no, I'm not going to make that because it's not going to hold up. This close to a wedding, if you're going to make a document, guess what? The argument will be that the pressure was on. She said, sign this or there will be no wedding. Invitations have gone out and this is going to be, embarrassment for the family. And that's why under pressure I signed. That agreement's not going to hold up.
People do that?
People do that. So so I have said, no, we're not making it. Go and get married, come back and see us, and we'll make what's called a cohabitation agreement.
Yeah.
So you can always make agreements after you get married.
Got it. So prenuptial, how much time do you need? Yes.
Good question, yeah. So again, no magic number, but I would encourage people to make it at least 6 months or more before an
6
actual.
months.
Yes. Because then no one can claim
Yes.
that the pressure was on. You can
Yeah.
still call off a wedding in 6 months. You can still, invitations have probably not even gone out yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, you should start talking about a prenup when you get engaged. Because you're getting engaged and there's a leadway to a wedding then.
Yeah. We've got
Well,
12
in most
months.
cultures, exactly. Yeah. So, you have the conversation early in the piece.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, life's legal journey with Cornerstone Law Offices. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Life's Legal Journey with Cornerstone Law Offices. We are here with Pravanita Singh Pillai and talking about life story of Maya and Gary.
Yes, well, they're a lovely young couple.
That's right.
Journeying through life, yes.
We touched upon buying a car, buying a house, the prenups, and after marriage, the document. What happens when they have kids? So when the kids are like under 18, is there anything they have to take into consideration?
Well, yeah, life will throw lots of things at them. We've got a friend who tells us that children will always teach you how to be a parent or what to do, right? So, look, there'll be different aspects which they'll have to consider, simple things about raising a child, obviously, but things like vaccination, things like religion, things like that they need to be talking about, how they're going to raise their children. Vaccination becomes an issue as well. There'll be religious beliefs. There'll be requirements that schools have locally that your children need to be vaccinated before they can be enrolled. So all those things, young parents or any parents will need to consider. Then you've got things like, are they going to adopt children? Are they going to use surrogacy laws to have somebody else carry their baby for them? For various reasons. Are they going to have IVF treatments? Then you're going to have things about if you are going through IVF procedures, for example, and there are frozen embryos, what happens if the couple separate? Who has the right to those embryos? What happens if somebody passes away? What happens to those embryos between the couple? So there's a whole heap of legal implications in life that can affect people. But you ask me what Gary and Maya's situation is, and then yeah.
Let's talk about adoption.
Yes.
So if the couple, like nowadays, many couples don't want to have kids.
Yes.
Because of the lifestyle.
Yes.
Everybody's busy. In olden days, there were grandparents who looked after the grandkids. And in other cultures, we could afford having people, nanas coming in.
Yes.
But here, in lifestyle over here, it's really hard. So if they plan to adopt the kid, of course they have to go through a very tough legal procedure, right? Because nobody's going to just hand over the kid and say, look after.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
Yeah, so it is like, it is a long process, yes. And some countries have far relaxed rules than Australia does, unfortunately, I will say. So yeah, our laws are a bit different and it's a long drawn out process. But again, then there's difference between what we call kinship adoption, so someone that you're adopting a child of a family, or an external then adoption. So that is a long process. Yes, there's courts involved, there's court orders involved, and it's a long drawn process basically. But it is still an option there. You still need to start quite young. And as you said, there are people who can't have children for various reasons, or they may have their own children and they're choosing to adopt. Then you've got the foster carers, who are in the system looking after, caring for children who have both parents who are, for various reasons, are unfit to care for their own children. There could be, criminal activities, there could be drugs involved, for mental health issues that parents can't co-parent or even look after their children. Therefore, you have children placed by the government, the courts, into foster care. Okay, so adoption is one option, always available there, but like I said, the process is quite expensive and long drawn out.
Wow. And how can the law firm help us?
Yeah, so we can give you advice in terms of the process and walk you through the journey with them, with the couple, and give you the preliminary advice to begin with, so you know what you're getting yourself involved in before you delve into that process.
Yeah. I
had an interesting case which I've dealt with. I want to say I wrapped it up about 18 months to 2 years ago. This was an interesting case, and I'll share that with our viewers. So this young mom fell pregnant, single mom, and her life was a mess because she was in the wrong circles, out on the streets, drugs, all of that kind of stuff. She fell pregnant, however, with the help of a particular organization which helps young people make the decision to keep the baby rather than to abort, and she decided to keep the child. Now, through that journey, she came across this young couple in the church that she was attending. And it came to her in her heart that this couple can't have children of their own, and she wanted them to have their baby. So she made this conscious decision that I would like my baby to be raised by this couple. While she was pregnant, she made that decision.
Wow.
Now, they helped her through, and she then conveyed that to this couple, and you can imagine their world turning upside down. Here's somebody, you know, they are very strong in their faith, so their belief was, well, God's giving them this child,
Yes.
right? So it's a win-win situation in terms of for the child being given a wonderful, loving home, a stable home, and for a mom to know where my child is.
Yes.
And being cared for 100%, and this is a decision I've made as opposed to aborting this child, right? So we had to go through the legal process, even though everybody was on board. The court still had to be satisfied that there was no pressure on this mother, that she was making this decision on her own, and that she had the appropriate counseling and appropriate support network around her for her to be making that decision. And so yeah, we had to jump through the hoops, but you know, these parents now have this child, and he's a beautiful little boy, and he'll know these sets of parents as mom and dad, and I think he's referring to her as, you know, auntie something sort of thing, and she's still part of his life.
That's unbelievable. That's an amazing decision a woman can make.
Yes,
And
yes.
and you know, lawyers helping them out through this journey.
So we had to sort of think outside the box,
Yeah.
look at the legislation, and see how we can work with the law and satisfy the requirements to keep everybody happy and supported.
Yes. You know what, Pravanita? The one thing which I never thought, and you added that they have to check whether that parent is not being pressurized.
Absolutely.
It could have never occurred.
Yes.
So there are so many incidents in various cases that can happen.
Yes, yes. Oh, absolutely. A lot more even in cultural settings, so ethnic backgrounds, where the pressure would be on you, you know, you're single and you've fallen pregnant, so you've just brought embarrassment to us. We'll sweep that under the carpet. You must give this baby up, or you must have an abortion. You know, those kinds of pressures are always there.
Yes.
Yet there's services around to help you support with those decisions through counseling, through proper counseling and that support, so that you are not then scarred for the rest of your life.
That's
For a decision you haven't even made that decision. Somebody else made that and imposed it on you.
And for those ladies who actually want to have the kid, but the family pressure is so hard, is there a safe haven over here?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are, you know, so that's again falls in that part of the domestic abuse situation
Yes.
as well. So there's helplines available.
Yeah.
There are legal centers available where you can go and get advice. Your starting point should always be your doctor, your GP. You can go and talk to your doctor about anything and everything,
Yeah.
and they have a network of referral. So they can refer and connect you to the right counseling service, to other relevant services. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for all these questions that you have answered,
Yes.
which will definitely help our viewers.
Yes, I'm hopeful. I'm
Thank
hopeful
you.
for that. Thank you.
Thank
Rina.
you very much, everybody.